Hey movie fans, so you guys voted and you wanted to see a Justice League Dark casting video for the DC universe, so I'll get started on that as soon as I can, but in the meantime, I want to do a little Q&A with you guys just because I feel like it's been a long time since I've done that on the channel, so I put a post up on the YouTube channel basically asking you guys for your comic and movie related questions that you want my thoughts, theories, and opinions on. So this video is going to be a little bit more laid back. There's not going to be a ton of edits with this, just something fun to interact with you guys. And if you like this format, maybe we'll do more of it. I'd love your feedback, whatever it is, good or bad. Let me know down in the comments below. Without further ado, let's get into your questions. What's in the box? I'm asking about the Origin box that apparently will completely shake up the Marvel comic verse. Okay, that makes a lot more sense than a Seven reference. I gotta be honest, I don't know what you're talking about. So, let's look this up together, shall we? So I did a little bit of a Googling here because I was completely unfamiliar with this. So I just Googled Marvel Mystery Box and it, gave me a whole bunch of loot boxes to buy. But that's, clearly not what you're talking about. I'm not entirely sure what these Origin boxes are. I looked it up and it was kind of giving me some Reddit answers and people were kind of debating and I was kind of confused. So if you kind of can give me more of a context of what this is, I'm very, very curious because I'll be honest, I'm not up to date on my Marvel comics. I more follow the DC stuff in terms of current continuity. Even then, I definitely have room to grow. But Marvel stuff, if there's a good launching off point, if there's like a big event that you think I should check out, let me know. This sounds interesting, but my Google searches thus far are not yielding great results. So steer me in the right direction, if you will. Do you think that the MCU, regardless of whatever the original plans were, is going to pivot and basically do a full-on reboot after Secret Wars in order to compete with DC? Oh, a complete reboot? Now that might be a tall ask. I've thought for the longest time, maybe even dating back to after Endgame, that their plan was eventually do a reboot. The thing with the MCU that's so fascinating, and you could debate the quality all you want post Endgame, but it's so interesting to see the MCU follow the more or less the comics world of, wow, this big successful boom, the likes of which we've never seen before, and then kind of like a silver age, and then potentially eventually a reboot because the franchise and the popularity of that initial thing is faded off. But we've never seen that with a movie franchise before because we've never seen one go on for this long. So we're getting into that stage that people are talking about a reboot or a relaunch. A hard reboot, I don't think necessarily, just because, for better or for worse, there are still some good things to come out post-Endgame. I really like Simu Liu as Shang-Chi. I really like Haley Steinfeld as Kate Bishop. I really like Tom Holland as Spider-Man, but granted, he was before Endgame, but he's still a holdover. There's still a lot of strong elements that are left in the MCU, so I don't think you throw out the baby with the bathwater of completely gut everything. If they were to completely gut everything and start completely fresh, I think you would need a couple years off. And just in the current state of media, you can't take a break, especially if DC might be gaining ground. But even DC, you don't really know because of the whole Warner Brothers sale thing. Are they going to Paramount? Are they going to Comcast? Are they going to Netflix as a shudder rolls down my spine? I don't like the thought of that at all. But is DC going to be as strong as we hope it will be in the next couple of years? I think we will be getting a reboot of some kind. It's just because it's getting really, really complicated to tell all these stories, and a fresh slate might be beneficial to the Marvel Universe, but I just don't think it'll be a complete one. But if this is a few years ago, I'd say there's no way that they do a complete reboot. But now you might be onto something, just because even the good things aren't connecting at the same level that they used to be. Like, yeah, I love Shang-Chi, but Disney has taken so long to do anything with that character that I worry that the next time we see him, there's not going to be an interest. Like, the highs of anything post Endgame still don't reach even kind of the mids in terms of the cultural zeitgeist. But then again, Is there a cultural zeitgeist? Is there an actual pop culture these days? That's a whole other big debate for another day, of the inundation of streaming and all of this content. And because there's so much content and so much choice out there, is there a collective anything? I think Endgame was the last gasp of a big cultural event. I don't know if we'll ever get that again, just because eyeballs are in so many different directions nowadays. So yeah, I think audience attention and retention, both of those things, are just so difficult to come by that I don't know. And maybe I'm just blabbering here, but I think we are going for a reboot, but it would be a soft reboot. It's just the length of that is up in the air to me, of like, is it fully? I don't see it, just because there's too much stuff that they've already invested in. There's a lot of things that people do still care about, but has the box office shown that people actually do care about it? Because, you know, Thunderbolts has some good characters. That bombed. Fantastic Four, we thought was going to be a surefire hit. That really didn't do well at the box office. So you might not be too far off with a full reboot thing, but I think there's still enough pieces here that you don't want to completely start from scratch. But yeah, post Secret Wars, I wonder, I've thought for a little bit now, maybe their plan after Endgame was, we got to build to a reboot just so we can do this over again. I don't think Kevin Feige is naive. I think he's always been a long gamer. I think he's got a long plan here that he's been working on for a little bit. There's just been some bumps in the roads and some leadership changes that he might have to clash with. So my long-winded answer for that is, yes, I think we will get a reboot for after Secret Wars, but I don't think it'll be a full reboot, just because there's too many good elements to throw out everything. But it also wouldn't be completely surprised if it is a full reboot. But if that's the case, there's going to be some time away, I think. Make people miss the MCU, so to speak. What are some romantic pairings in non-romantic films that you like? So when I saw this question, there was one that leapt to my mind immediately that I'm going to talk about just briefly here, because it's not actually a movie pairing, but oh well, I got to talk about it anyway. And it's Uncharted. It's Nathan Drake and Elena. I love them so much. Not just because I love Uncharted, but yeah, it's the first 3 Uncharted games. It's a kind of on again, off again, cliche romance. But what they do with Uncharted 4 is one of my favorite connections between a couple ever. Like, there's this thing called communication. Well, ish. When there's not the communication, that's where the character drama is, and it's beautiful and wonderful. But the relationship between the two of them, especially in the 4th one, is one of my favorites. Uncharted 4 has one of my favorite scenes in any medium, whether it's games or movies. And I won't give you full spoilers, because if you don't know Uncharted 4, play it. It's like one of my favorite games of all time. But there's a scene in it that is just one of the most beautifully acted, beautifully directed scenes of all time. And it's a great couples scene of one character that's so obsessed with something that they try to hide this obsession from their partner, and the other person completely knows and accepts this obsession. They just want to be a part of that thing. And I love how the scene plays out, because yes, we've all been there of like tunnel vision and just going, yes, this is the way to go. But good communication is the key. And I love couples that communicate, whether it's in games or movies. So some other names that I have are all kind of falling in that category. And boy, they're going to be some weird ones, just because for some reason I was having brain block on this one. So some of them are recency bias, like Dale and Allison in Tucker and Dale versus Evil. I just watched that recently. It's one of my favorite horror comedies of all time. But that's such an organic relationship, actually. And I really love the communication between the two of them, and it's just the chemistry between those two characters. The other ones are the Abbotts from A Quiet Place, maybe because, John Krasinski and Emily Blunt are actually married in real life and they have that great chemistry, but they also just have a great dynamic together. And the other one that I always point to as one of my favorite movie couples of all time, and it's going to sound so bizarre, it's Donut Lord and Maddie from the live action Sonic movies. I know it sounds bizarre, but hear me out. They have such good communication and they're such a believable couple. Like, when James Marsden starts getting in trouble, she doesn't automatically assume that he's doing anything bad. She's just like, okay, something's off. Just tell me what's going on. And she immediately understands, oh, hey, you're hanging out with this random blue hedgehog. Okay, what's the story from there? Is it a little bit of a story contrivance? Maybe, I don't care. But I love when stories don't have to rely on stupid cliche interpersonal drama and you could just have good human characters that, heaven forbid, talk to each other. And that's, what happens with the Sonic movies, oddly enough. Like, that's one of the healthiest marriages in movies that focus on a super fast hedgehog and his amazing friends. I love the Sonic movies so much, and I, am kind of amazed at how good the human characters are. Who would you cast Henry Cavill as in Gunn's DC universe? Oh boy, this is a tricky one. I had to think for a little bit here because my initial gut reaction is, I want him to play a villain just to see something different from him. I really like what he brought to the table with Mission Impossible Fallout. I want something different from him. So the only villain I could really think of, though, that I'm like, yeah, that would be great, is Ultraman. It just sounds cliche, but have him be like an alternate universe evil Superman, it's on the nose, but I'm just like, yeah, I could see that. Either that or maybe like a Two-Face or a Hush, but even then I'm not super gung-ho on those. The other ones that I'm like, yes, absolutely, are either Orion, cool, I'm very much on board with that, or Captain Atom. I know I really wanted Alan Richardson as him in like the underrated casting and characters video that I did a while back, but I'd also be very much fine with Henry Cavill being Captain Atom. He's got that build, he's got that stoicism that I think you kind of need, and very, not rigidness, but he can play the stone-faced, you don't want to mess with this character type of thing. Plus, I don't know if I buy him for more of the like emotional tender moments. He can do it, but I haven't seen, that's not the type of roles that he's taken on in the past. So give him that awesome, just fantastic warrior type character, whether it's The Witcher or his Superman. Make that Captain Atom. I can absolutely see that happening. Do I think he'll be in James Gunn DC Universe? Probably not. I don't think that'll actually happen. Just too many burned bridges there. I know James Gunn spoke highly of him, but I would love to see it, but I don't think it'll happen. If it does happen, Captain Atom all the way, please. Favorite Catwoman actress? So here's the thing. I don't think we've actually gotten like the truly perfect Catwoman yet. I know some people will be like, but Michelle Pfeiffer. I didn't grow up with Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. I only saw Batman Returns not too long ago. It's fine as a Batman movie. It's kind of weak. And her Catwoman is good. But I don't know. As someone that grew up on Batman the Animated Series, I like more of the animated versions of Catwoman than anything we've gotten in live action. But if I had to nail it down, I would either say, and these are, polar opposites here, I actually liked what Anne Hathaway brought to the table in the Dark Knight trilogy, specifically Dark Knight Rises. But the other one is I am a child of both Batman the Animated Series, but Batman the 60s show. So Eartha Kitt was my first introduction to Catwoman, and I'll always kind of have a special place in my heart for Eartha Kitt's Catwoman just because I've seen so much of that over the years. So I'll give it a 2-horse race for Anne Hathaway or Eartha Kitt, as weird as those picks might be. What is your favorite X-Men film? Okay, this is a 2-horse race, but for very different reasons. I know the cliche answer would be to be like Logan. Yeah, Logan is great. It's like the only X-Men movie that made me cry. I was bawling my eyes out the first time I saw it in the theaters. But I never think of that as an X-Men movie. That's a character drama with Logan as a character. There's not really an X-Men, like an ensemble movie. It's a great movie, but I never think of it as an X-Men movie. If it is, if we're counting it as that, I'd say Logan. But the one that's like my favorite, like most rewatchable, X-Men Days of Future Past. I did not really grow up reading the X-Men. I have quite a bit of X-Men comics, specifically like stuff from the late 90s, so probably not the best era, but whatever. I didn't really grow up with X-Men, but I've watched plenty of the movies, and I really liked First Class. I thought they were kind of rushing into Days of Future Past, going, oh, wow, we're crossing over the old and the new already, but here we are. Then I saw Days of Future Past. Oh, man, I love that movie so much. There's just so many elements to it. I love the new and the young cast both being in it together. I love that, yes, while Wolverine is still kind of the main character here, he's not as prominent as other movies. A lot of the Fox X-Men movies tended to go, yeah, Hugh Jackman's the main character. And I'm like, we have other characters that I would like to see, please. And he's less of the focus. Yeah, he's still one of the main characters, but he's not the main character, so to speak. There's an ensemble like an X-Men movie should be. Plus, X-Men Days of Future Past has one of my favorite moments, not just in an X-Men movie, but in a superhero movie in general. And it's the moment that Professor X is trying to get Cerebro working again, but he's so out of touch that like he's more or less like kind of forgotten how to basically ride the bike, so to speak. And Wolverine's like, read my mind, Charles. And Charles starts going into his brain and he's just like, look at all this pain, you poor thing. He's like, no. Look past my pain. And he sees what Charles gives him in his future. He gives him this family. He gives this thing. He's like, you are more than your future. You're more than your past or whatnot. And it's just this like, yeah, just because bad things have happened to you in your past does not dictate your future. Yeah, it's a little on the nose when Beast comes back. He's like, and Power's back. It's like, yes, it is. I'm like, yes, we get it. Like, it's the Charles character rediscovering who he is. Heroes in turmoil and rediscovering who they are is one of my favorite story tropes of all time. Whether it's there's a hero in all of us from Spider-Man 2, that's so near and dear to my heart. I wrote it into basically every single one of my Nightwing pitches of hero gets knocked down and gets back up. I love that. And to see that from Charles Xavier of all characters, a person that's like the infallible character in those movies, to have him hit rock bottom and be brought up from a character that he will eventually save from rock bottom. It's just, I love it so much. But the action is great. The characters are great. I love Days of Future Past so much. And it kind of gets overshadowed by Logan, which is probably the better like movie, but man, Days of Future Past was great and probably the last great ensemble X-Men movie, because Dark Phoenix and whatever the other one was, that ain't it, Chief. Do you think the Absolute Universe should be a temporary run, or should it be a long-term investment for DC? That is a great question, because oh man, the Absolute Universe has been awesome so far. Like Absolute Batman and Absolute Superman. Oh boy, I don't know. I kind of see the Absolute Universe right now being kind of DC's equivalent to the Ultimate Universe for Marvel back in the 2000s of, yeah, this can be a good like alternate universe from our main timeline. But without delving too much into spoilers, I don't know if this universe does have a long-term future, just because it seems like they're teasing certain things for DCKO, which that first issue of DCKO was awesome. Like, I was way on board with that. I cannot wait to see where that story direction goes. They were hinting at things crossing over between the Absolute Universe and the mainline universe. So I'm waiting to see what the end of DCKO is bringing for both our mainline and our Absolute, if they are going with this long term. But given the comic sales and just the general interest in the Absolute Universe, I see this being a long-term thing for sure. But it could be like the Ultimate of it will have a shelf life eventually. And maybe that's the story they're telling with DCKO. Maybe that's a big event that they're going to tell in a few years from now, because DC loves them some events, for better or for worse. Some of them are great. Some of them exist. I think DC will run with this for as long as it makes sense. Then when it stops making sense, they'll keep running with it for another year or two, and then they'll wrap it up. But I would reserve judgment on whether I think it's going to be a temporary run or a full run till the end of DCKO and see where we're at with both universes coming out of that, because I feel like that's going to shake up the status quo more than we realize. I actually also still kind of want the heroes to lose in DCKO, just because I think that would be a very interesting story direction. Everyone just kind of assumes someone's going to win the tournament and beat Darkseid. I actually kind of would love it if someone wins the tournament and loses to Darkseid, like Mortal Kombat style. Where does the story go from there? But yeah, that's just my theories. Also, if you haven't, start reading the Absolute comics. They're fantastic. Who's the most powerful comic book character, and powerful in the sense of what abilities they have? This always feels kind of like subjective of, well, actually, but my initial gut reaction was going to say the Spectre from DC. But then I was like, oh wait, no, there's probably some other ones. So I'm going to have to nail it down. Like this is the one I'm going to stick with, is the one above all in Marvel Comics. So basically, the one above all is essentially Marvel God, not like God in the sense of like Thor and Loki and whatnot. This is like God, the omniscient, omnipotent, all-powerful God that created everything, but so very rarely ever intervenes in the Marvel universe. So I would kind of lean in that general direction of if you were all powerful to the point of you don't even get involved. kind of ish like the Watcher in the What If stuff, but I don't know if he's nearly as powerful, or even if he has any power. I kind of gave up on What If. But I would say the one above all, just because it's kind of hard to trump a god, not just a god, but God. And lastly, what superhero, if turned villain, would be stronger that way, and vice versa? Okay, so my gut reaction initially was to say Batman. If Batman was a villain, we would have a very bad time, or the other heroes would have a very bad time. We've seen that plenty of time. We have like Failsafe in the comics recently, which is like a droid that was created by the Batman's subconscious, or whatever we're calling Zuranar. It's kind of weird. But he basically created this giant robot that could kill any member of the Justice League. So that's a nightmare. We also have Batman who laughs. Not going with Batman, not going with Superman. Not even going to go with like an Iron Man or a Spider-Man. Although just when Spider-Man's mad, that's a very scary universe. The one I'm actually going to go with is the Flash, specifically Barry Allen. So we know Barry can basically go back in time and alter time via the Speed Force and whatnot. He created a Flashpoint and everything else, just trying to save his mom. Well, what if you had a villain version of that? Like Reverse Flash only really messes with time to mess with Barry specifically because he's that petty. Well, what if Barry was a villain that wasn't petty and just had like a Joker mentality of watching the world burn, and that way he could just completely and royally screw up any timeline he wanted, and he couldn't have like Booster Gold come in and save the day and fix the timeline. I think Flash would be so dangerous as a villain, having no moral compass, because he is the ultimate moral compass. Him and Superman are like the goodest of the good when it comes to DC heroes. So corrupting Flash, making Flash the villain, I think is such a slept on pick of, oh yeah, if you're a villain, that's a bad day for everybody involved, and he would be so much worse as a villain than he is as a hero. On the flip side, a villain that would be better and probably stronger as a hero is talked about so much in the comics, and I love that it's a consistent thing with him, and that's Lex Luthor. I get why James Gunn really wants to use him as more or less one of the co-leads for Man of Tomorrow, him and Superman, because time and time again, it is said with Lex Luthor, you could be a great man. You could literally save the world if you could get out of your own way. All-Star Superman, he gets the powers of Superman for a little bit, and he can see all the particles in the air. He sees literally how everything in the world and the universe is connected before the powers get taken away. And he's like, no. If I had the powers, if I had these powers, I could have saved everyone. And Superman gives like the best line of All-Star Superman, which is saying something, because that comic is one of the greatest of all time. If you really cared, Luthor, you would have saved the world a long time ago. And Luthor, dejected, says, I know. He knows deep down that his ego is what gets in the way. Luthor could be one of the greatest heroes of all time if he chose to be and get his pride out of the way. But that's what makes the character so interesting. One of the other great Superman comics of all time is Superman Red Son, and they actually toyed with that idea of like, what if Superman crash landed in Soviet Russia and was basically a communist, and the American Lex Luthor is the good guy, and at the end, Superman kind of bows out, takes his leave, never to be seen again, and Lex Luthor actually saves the world. The world becomes a better place with him in charge. He makes these generations, and spoiler alert for the people that have not read the Red Son comic, it has one of my favorite endings to a Superman comic of all time of Lex Luthor led the world to prosperity for generations to generations. It was Lex Luthor, and then it was something Luthor, and then they just shortened it to something L. They always had the alliteration in the name, and then L, and then they shortened it to EL, and then generations, to which he eventually had Jor-El, and you're like, oh, snap. That was such a good reveal for the Red Son comic. But eventually you realize, yes, Lex can be the good guy, but he can't get out of his own way. He would be one of the greatest heroes of all time. But he can't be because he's Lex Luthor, and it's what makes him a compelling character. Well, this was a lot of fun. If you guys like this, let me know. If you want to see more of this going forward, we can make this like a monthly or a bi-monthly thing. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down below, or if you have any other comments or questions you want my thoughts, theories, and opinions on. That Justice League Dark video will be coming out eventually, either later this week or sometime next week, whenever I get around to finishing that. But as always, if you like what you're seeing and want to see more, subscribe to the channel. And as always, stay sharp, movie guys and gals.